A matter of ego. Looking back, I've wondered why I didn't fall prey to believing women were everything divine, end up marrying, or fall into being a player to focus on their needs all the time. I'm sure you may have wondered this about yourself if you too are free. Early in my life, there was a bashfulness in me that helped keep me away from women, but nature reasserts itself and overcomes shyness eventually. So it had to be something else that kept me off of the way. Every man around me was a family man. I also had a highly religious upbringing, but nature also eventually overcomes that too. In school, there was a conversation that I find myself suddenly remembering. A hot cheerleader girl was at my table in biology class, assigned seating for everyone, I believe. Apparently, this girl was not the typical airhead, but very observable. One day she turned to me and said, "You are very different from the other guys." Yeah, because I was a shy, dorky wimp who couldn't approach the coolness of the football players and other cool dudes. While I didn't say that, I thought it. She must have picked up on it, for she then said, "Unlike the other guys," she pointed to thugs leaning back talking against the cabinets, and pointed in the other direction where the sports guys gathered to talk about the next game, and then at the nerds studying hard to get a high score to match their other high scores. "You do not have an ego." Something about the conversation felt very comfortable. Rarely do I come out of my shell and share my innermost hobbies and all. I don't even do it on the internet. But she listened and talked back on a similar level. I was beginning my craft of writing, and she seemed genuinely interested in it. Now, I'm sure the So Suave guys will go, "ZOMG Pook, why didn't you go for her, lol?" First, I thought she was attractive, but I wasn't hot for her. Remember, I was very young then, and so many of my hormones were asleep. 2, the conversation was nothing romantic. 3, she was years older than me. Hell, I couldn't even drive then. Now, thinking about it, I had another identical case with another hot cheerleader. She was obviously modeling, and at this time, I was old enough where enough hormones were kicking up interest. She was definitely a guy magnet. Instead of discussion about egos, it was more about the craft of writing and reading. A skeptical reader would now say, "But aha, Pookie, with you recounting these young adult moments is proof of your momentous earth-shattering ego. You only remember the discussions with the hot cheerleaders because you conveniently forget the discussions with the ugly girls." Actually, I don't remember any similar discussion with ugly girls. I have had similar discussions when I got older, but they were with married women my age. Anne had their guy and wasn't looking at me as a target. There was no way those girls back then were trying to get their hooks in wimpy me back then. Not when they had their entire football team to choose from. Maybe they were curious that I wasn't all over them like the other guys. But I don't think that is it either. There was no incentive to talk to me, and I had no incentive to talk to them, being my old bashful self. For once, they could talk to me on a wavelength I could identify with, without the usual hooks, traps, and snares. In my personal life, I demand this wavelength of my friends as well. I find the idea of turning coworkers into friends just because of proximity to be bad. But women are so manipulative that it annoys me that they do not give me a chance to know who they really are, good or bad. I hate fake people, men and women. Anyway, how one worships their ego very much alters their fate in life. In our matriarchy, women have a master morality while men follow a slave morality. So it follows. The less of an ego a man has, the less likely he will be enslaved by either a woman or heavily leveraged by a corporation. The less of an ego a woman has, the less likely she will enslave and manipulate. Western women are filled with their egos, which is why they are so awful. Western men are filled with their egos, which is why they are so wimpy. The wimpier the guy, the bigger his ego, it seems. When foreign women are brought back inside the Anglosphere, they often become corrupted and turn as bad as other women. The West is very ego-worshipping. The idea of dropping to one's knees and declaring how horrible you are is very foreign in America, except some of the religious. But remember, the Pharisees were religious too, but they had greater egos than anyone else. Jesus insulted them to their face. The girls in their previous countries had no reason to worship their ego. Fighting your ego is the way to keep your perceptions sharp and remain free.